Hello, I'm Stan Johnson with Joseph's Kitchen, and I'm going to show you how I make bread. And I'm not going to do anything real fancy here because I made about 60 or 70 loaves. I made 5 loaves last night. So I'm just going to show you what I do. And having made 5 loaves last night, obviously I know what I'm doing. I started with a basic recipe, but we have improved it as we've gone through and learned making all of these loaves. So I'm going to show you the easy way to do it. First of all, I go to the tap and I get hot water right out of the tap. And my hot water, put this thermometer here, it comes out about 130 degrees. So then I take the hot water and then I put, the original recipe calls for a full tablespoon of salt. Originally, I didn't put that much into it, but I found here lately that that's about how much I put in. And I stir it. Now, if you have not tasted this salt, you've not tasted the best salt in the world. So the sand naturally collects in a nice little pile at the bottom, which we find very convenient. So we pour off, and we try to get exact measurements. So I'm going to pour off down to 1.5 cups, because we're making just basic bread. That goes down the drain. Then we add in our honey, a 1/3 cup of honey. Now, I try to get real accurate on it, but if I go a little bit more, a little bit less, it's no big deal. So if you see I'm adding about 1/3 cup of honey. By the way, this is the best honey I've ever tasted in my life. And it was a miracle we found this guy supplying us. So it's excellent honey. You want Joseph's Kitchen honey. Next thing is we put in the oil. Again, about 1/3 cup. Now, yeah, that's what happens. This is a brand new can, so it's going to probably gurgle out. I'll try to, if you pour it from the top like this, you'll notice that it does better without so much gurgling and making a mess. So now we add in 2 eggs. Now, you don't have to add the eggs, but eggs is protein. Yeast likes protein. So you don't make bread the same way at sea level as you do in the mountains. You don't make it the same way in the winter as you do in the summer. So if you start to find some of your loaves that are not rising nice like this loaf here, then you can add more eggs. So I like the 2 eggs. I like a nice fluffy loaf. Some of you don't. Again, you can make however kind of loaf you want to. So I've got 2 eggs, 1.5 cups of hot water, and 1/3 cup of oil, 1/3 cup of honey. Now, this is important, but I'm not on a burner right now. But what we would normally do is put this in here, and we want to stir it over a stove. And I'm not really concerned whether the yolks break or not. If they break, that's fine. But what I want to do is stir it over a burner on like low or medium. I want to bring it up to at least 100 degrees. Now, for you guys in here, I don't have it on a burner. It's only reading about 85. But it is summertime, so I'm not real concerned about that. But especially winter, you want to make sure it gets up to 100. Then we pour the ingredients in here. Yeah, don't worry about, well, see, I just made a mistake because I didn't do what I normally do, so I'm going to redo it, show you. It's important for you to do it this way. We want to get all of that honey out. Normally, when I heat it up to 100 degrees and I'm stirring it, that honey is mixed nice there. So I'm getting the honey, I'm pouring back in here, and you'll make mistakes, and that's okay, that's part of the learning. And by the way, don't wait until the trouble arrives to start making your bread. Start making it right now. Experiment with all kinds of recipes. Okay, so I've got my liquid in here. The original recipe said put the flour next, make a little gray, put the yeast in there. Well, I found all that is not necessarily exactly the best. So I've just started putting my 1 tablespoon of yeast right on top of the 100-degree liquid. That kind of helps it start waking up because we keep it in the refrigerator. And here's another thing. Sometimes after about 4 or 5 weeks after you've opened the yeast, you'll start noticing some of your bread is not rising too well. That's because your yeast is aging a little bit. So sometimes I'll just put a little bit more yeast in there if my bread gets to where it's not rising as much. So I'll put an extra half a tablespoon in there. Okay, anyway, so now we got the yeast. Now we have to put the berries, and that's what you call them. So what we do is we turn on this, we let it spin up. Do not put the berries in until it spins up. Then we put, and by the way, these are just some containers I found around. 1, 2, 3 cups of red. Then we take 1 cup of white. Don't use soft white, it won't work. You got to use hard red, hard white berries. Again, all from Joseph's Kitchen. These are just some buckets I found. You can use whatever kind of buckets because we got the 7-gallon buckets out in the garage. These are just something for here in our convenience here. And so we'll give that a second to grind up. A little word to the wise, don't take it off too soon or you will get sprayed with a bunch of flour. But there, that'll work. Another thing I do is I pour it slowly so that it doesn't flop out all over and make a big mess of the flour. I want to get, I'm a tightwad, I want to get every bit of the flour out of there. So now I've got my yeast. The last thing I have to add is lecithin. The recipe calls for a level tablespoon of lecithin, about this much, but Leslie likes it a little bit more, so I will put a heaping tablespoon like this in, and I've already put it in there, so I'm going to put this in there more. But anyway, lecithin makes your bread hold together so it doesn't seem so crummy. Also, it makes it nice and soft because the texture is important to making the bread really good. Now, let me also say, this is the basic recipe. It starts here. If you want to start adding raisins or cinnamon or jalapenos, all kinds of ways you can make it, but this is the basic bread. And you start here, and I recommend you start making it as soon as you get your Joseph's Kitchen kit in. Check this, phone, check, is everything work right? Okay,